Thank you. Senator from Spartanburg has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you being here today. I have one of the things I've listened to in a lot of the discussion surrounding these restructuring bills, and obviously we're specifically talking here about behavioral health and working with the Department of Mental Health being restructured. But you touched on a range of subjects that are beyond that. Okay, but this is all part of
the same.
I'll use a I'll use a good medical term, comorbidity here. Everything's getting lumped in. And I'm being completely serious because I think most of us up here, and I certainly would include myself in this, are not comfortable with the idea of there being a health czar. But I would ask you more broadly, not just this particular departmental structure we're talking about here. All right. But whether we talk about restructuring the monstrosity that was DHEC into more manageable bites here, I have a really hard time, and I would love for you to help me understand this. How somehow we're creating a health czar when under the DHEC structure prior, you had a director that answered to a board that none of us ever really even see. And there is no direct accountability. Every one of these departments, including the one we're contemplating here, you say it's an unelected czar that's going to have unlimited powers. They have to be appointed by the governor, who is elected by the people and confirmed by the Senate. All of us are elected by the people. And there's no intermediate board here in between us and this director anymore. How do you feel that a health czar is being created versus what existed prior?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those board meetings that Dr. Simmer led, and it seemed like the board members were puppets, that they didn't do their own homework. So that's definitely a problem.
That's kind of irrelevant to that. I understand that, but how is this worse than? I have a hard time understanding how we're creating a czar when we're weakening the unelected element you're worried about, and you've got more direct accountability from the governor and the members of the Senate. How is that creating a czar?
Well,
I hear that term a lot, and I think people have used czar way too loosely over the years.
Well, I think you all know that there has been a campaign to stop Simmer because Simmer did not do it.
Well, Simmer wouldn't direct this agency.
Well, I'm just saying.
He's not direct. I'm trying to understand your overall logic. Forget Simmer.
Right.
Simmer's not here. How do we go from we remove unelected boards, we make agencies more accountable, we make them more efficient, we have direct confirmation hearings by the Senate appointed by the elected governor? How is that creating a czar of any kind?
Well, because this will set things up for H 3613, which will complete the task of getting Simmer as a director over all of it. So it's
I think a lot of you guys have a lot more confidence in our Machiavellian ability to do conspiracy than we do, because if you haven't noticed, government's not nearly as good at creating conspiracies as you think it is.
Well, I don't believe in conspiracy. I believe in truth. So, and I see the trend that's happening. McMaster, even though he's our elected official, he is not responding to the will of the people, and he has decided that
You mean with the nomination of Simmer?
Yes.
Okay, but he hasn't been confirmed yet. So this is back to the constitutional checks and balances, isn't it?
I hope that he won't be.
Well, and that's okay.
But he is insistent he will not select another candidate. So I hope that the Senate will push back on that regardless, even if he's saying Simmer is the only one. But I still believe that the consolidation of agencies, I realize that is.
But this isn't a consolidation. Excuse me one sec. This is not a. If you take, you've got to look at this as in the whole picture. Okay. That you had an agency before with DHEC that literally did everything from certify toilets to fry cookers, prescriptions and vaccines. That is not a workable solution. We've seen that, right? We've seen one department of that agency, one element of that agency cannibalize the budget of another. We've seen horrible inefficiencies in getting permits approved or having efficient policy. That's the whole contemplation behind breaking these things up a couple of years ago. That's the whole point of doing what we're talking about doing here, is making more accountability in a particular area of service, right? So even when you cited the Constitution about violating multiple subject matters, we're talking about one area of subject matter. You're talking about one element of a department that existed for quite a long time. I mean, covering everything, as I just said, from fry cookers to toilet bowls to vaccines and pills. And we're saying, no, that's insane. Let's make this more accountable. We're talking here about mental health, behavioral health. Those are related issues. It's far more related than what it would be if you included it in the broader DHEC subject matter. Hard time understanding this outrage about creating a czar or consolidation of power when in fact we're doing the opposite. And I go back to a quote I always love by Winston Churchill. He said, lies get halfway around the world before truth can get its pants on. I mean, do you not feel that, do you agree that DHEC was worse than what we're doing now?
I think that these monolithic agencies are not good in any sense, but I don't think that.
But how is it monolithic if we just took an agency with four or five different divisions and we're breaking it into divisions that are relevant to the subject matter?
Right.
Monolithic is what existed before.
Okay, what I don't believe is that intellectual and developmental disabilities belongs in this category. And this is one argument of all of my arguments that you're getting a little bit fixated on. I don't believe that these three things belong together. But that's not my main argument here. I mean, this bill is unconstitutional with a different subject matter. You said I have lots of arguments. Well, yes, because it's all over the place.
It's not unconstitutional for us to establish an agency that's going to. When you talk about, excuse me, ma'am, when you talk about things related to mental, behavioral development or mental disabilities, these are related items. You can't say these aren't related. So to say that we're violating, it's one thing. It's okay to disagree with people, and I respect that. That's the nature of democracy. But to say that we're violating the Constitution, we're creating a tyrannical state.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, a moment ago you said that Title 44 is tyranny and that we're basically helping perpetuate tyranny.
Yes, it is tyranny.
Well, it depends on, if you don't have any checks and balances, it could be tyranny. The definition of, excuse me, the definition of tyranny, you're making my case for me. The definition of tyranny is unelected power and authority where there is no check and balance, there is no recourse. We are making quite sure that there's checks and balances and there's recourse. So you go back to COVID, I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of us disagree with a lot of things that happened during that. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that occurred is, first off, it was an unprecedented emergency that people made huge mistakes. Some of those things I think were probably lapses in judgment. Some were probably people seizing the moment for bad purposes across the country, okay? We are weakening the ability for that to happen. There's greater accountability. We can't just scrap having any kind of health policy for the state. I mean, there's got to be something. And if you have the governor appointing, the Senate confirming, and you have agencies that are more tangibly accountable to a specific purpose, I do not understand the czar argument.
Okay,
I'm going to let it go here, but Mr.
I
Chairman,
know.
thank you.
I think that's getting you. I think that's catching you too much. But
well, that's the gist of your testimony.
No, the constitutional argument is about combining more than one subject in a bill. So let me just be clear on that. So we didn't need to combine these things. You could have just done a bill on.
So you want to have a different department for mental health, a different department for drug and alcohol, and then if we do that, we're going to be accused of tyranny for creating those departments.
No, that's not. You're
making a process argument. You're saying one subject rule. Yes. You're saying this violates one subject rule. I appreciate your opinion in that regard. Anything further?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.